Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 7 of Inspire Me Forward. And my name is Lynda Watson, and I am going to be your host as well as your guest today. So I have had a few people ask me if if I was going to do one, and I thought, oh no, I'm not. I'm the host. But they, in the end, convinced me that maybe I should do one. So I'm going to do one. So this is my story. And this is my that is my life. And or some of it. I guess we can't do the whole thing there. I'm just gonna see if I can get this on. Pam, I'm wondering if you have a sound coming across there. It keeps bringing you forward, which is wonderful, but I'm wondering if, can you maybe go on and off mute, Pam?
Yes, I'm off.
Yeah. Okay, and then we'll put you back on mute. Ah, interesting. Let me try something else. Okay, well, we're going to do it this way and see how it goes. So, for those that don't know me, again, my name is Lynda Watson, and I am from just outside of Toronto, Ontario, Canada. I was born in Northern Ontario, where it's very cold, at least in the 60s it was. I am somebody that just turned into my, flowed into my 6th decade on this lovely planet, and have moved not too much, really. I've traveled a lot, but I've not moved around. We moved from Northern Ontario to Southern Ontario and sort of bounced around in Southern Ontario a bit, but that was all. Yeah, that's a bit about me. As far as leaps, we're going to start to name these. We're going to start to name our episodes. And when I was thinking about that, I'm like, well, what's that concurring theme that's happened to me when I've taken a leap of faith? What's been that something that's similar along the line, and that through line? And it's always been authenticity for me. It's always been either I'm leaping towards or I'm leaping away from. And I think every leap of faith is towards something and away from something. It just depends, I think, on what weight it holds. So I look back on some of them, and it was some of them leaping into something held the more weight. Some of them leaping out of something or away from something held more weight. And I'll talk about a few of them. I've always been a person that I've never thought I've really taken a huge leap of faith, like a 180. I've never felt that. And when I've looked back over them, I've had maybe some bigger ones and maybe some smaller ones, but I guess it's all in how we perceive it ourselves, and how I see it for myself. Is it a big leap of faith or was it not? In the moment, it probably was. And looking back on it over a lifetime, maybe we don't see it as so much. Hi, Kathy. We're just on mute now. So I sort of broke my in my preview. I said something about my scarf dance and how that moment, and I vividly remember this. And again, I think I was 6 or 7 years old, going to another school with my mother driving us, and just dancing around this other classroom at this other school with these silk scarves. I don't remember anything further about it. I don't remember why we went. I have no idea, but I remember the feeling of it. And I remember that feeling of just being free and that freedom of expression to be fully me in that moment in time. And that moment has stuck with me for many years up to now. So when I thought to go back and sort of think, was I leaping? I was probably leaping with scarves, but it was that moment of pure authenticity, that pure feeling of just being me, just being fully me, who I am. So I really went back when I thought about all of this. And as I was saying before we started here, doing one of these is very cathartic. It's I honor those that have gone before and that will go after is, this is very cathartic to sit and think about your life and to come up with those moments of leaping, of change, and to sort of sit with that. So yeah, it really is cathartic to think about it and reflect on, reflect back on it. And yeah, if I think about who in my family, where I got it from, I know, Greta, you, when you did yours, you thought about them, you're saying getting it from your parents. I really think it was my mother. My mother was a intuitive leaper, uh, if for want of a better phrase, but if something struck her and she thought, should we do this? Yes. And yep, yes was the first word. We did it. It was just there and we did it. So I think my father was a little more analytical, and he'd either go along with her, or he was a little more analytical, being a professor that he was. So maybe not as much, but I know my mother was that, yep, feels good, let's do it. And I think that was where I probably got some of my leap of faith abilities and skills from. So I wanted to go into, I've sort of broken it down to 4. I've got a few notes here just so I don't get off track, because I do tend to sort of go on sometimes. So I think my first really leap was when we bought a farm. It was a family farm, but at 19 years old, nothing else had felt right for me. I went to, out of high school, went into university, just didn't feel right. I was vivid in the horse world at that time and doing a lot, and had started teaching with other people, so freelancing with other people. And we started looking for farms, and it just the right place at the right time. But you look back on it, and at 19 years old, starting the business, jumping into it, it really was a leap of faith. It could have gone sideways, it could have gone anyway, but it went great, and we were there for 20 wonderful, wonderful years. And to many people, it was a place that felt like home. So I guess that would have been, in adult years, that would have been sort of my first leap of faith. And that to me was leaping towards. I was leaping towards something. It felt like that. I was leaping towards that authentic, that pure authenticity of something I loved to do. And I got to do it. I got to do it as much as I wanted to, every day, all day. I got to live in the horse's world at that time. And that was perfect. And that was 20 years of that. It was wonderful. When I look on relationships, I would say relationships have never been a forefront in my life. They've been there, but they've never been, and I'm not going to pinpoint any of them, because the through line again is the inability to be authentic in a relationship for me. And that's always what I leapt away from and leapt towards. I leapt towards the ability for myself to be authentic, moving away from that, the fact that I just couldn't be there. The grounds weren't there. The relationship wasn't there to offer both parties to be who they truly were. And, that really got me, when I got thinking about relationships, it really got me thinking about how do we move towards a leap, or a leap of faith? How do we move towards that? And I think there's several ways. We're either nudged. So we've got this little nudge that, somebody says something. For one of my relationships, it was a therapist that said, you both will never be exactly who you want each other to be. And that was just enough for me to go, what my dreams are will never happen in this situation. So that was sort of my kick there, or my nudge. Maybe that was just a nudge. I think sometimes we get a kick, like we get a really strong push, and we almost have to do something. Maybe we've been thinking about it, but maybe there's a job, and we are let go, and there's that, oh, well, you got to do it now. Or there's just that listening to the heart, and that's just that step of our own where we step off that proverbial, leap off that proverbial cliff of going, you know what, I'm listening to my heart and I'm going to do this. So for me, all of them are a mixture of either one or the other of those. I think also for me, there's also been smaller leaps. I think leaving a relationship or moving there's more weight in them. There's more risk involved in them, perhaps. A few of the smaller ones have been the magazine, my Equine Leadership magazine. And risk because I had no idea where it was going to go. For me, that one was leaping into something because my heart told me to. So I wasn't being pushed into it. I could have said, I'm not going to do this, but my heart told me to. I was nudged to it in, long story short, somebody, I was taking a leadership course. They wanted leadership to come from a certain angle. I didn't believe in that. And they asked me, how are you going to lead? And I said, well, my mouth didn't say it. My brain didn't say it. My heart said it, because I don't remember the words coming out of my mouth, but my heart said, I'm going to lead like a horse. And that was it. As soon as I heard those words, I was done that course, what I'd gone there for. So I guess there was that nudge. But then the magazine part just found its way. I don't remember the moment I said, I'm going to start a magazine. I have no idea. I cannot pinpoint that moment. I just remember calling some friends that I knew in the business and say, hey, do you want to write an article? Everybody said yes. And, 8 years later. So it was that leap into the unknown, but the heart guiding the way. I think our hearts always will guide the way. And I think we build that leaping muscle as we go on in life. And I honestly see some young podcasters now and interviewers that I am in awe of how far they've leaped already in life. So perhaps evolution is helping people leap quicker and with more courage as we move forward in time. But for me, I think the muscle gets stronger as we go on. This Inspire Me Forward is another, what I would consider, small leap. I say small because there wasn't a lot of risk in it for me. It works. It doesn't hold that risk. But it all just happened. I'm sure some of you have heard the story. I'll reiterate, but when I left my career, other people had said, oh, that's so inspiring. And that made me think of other times that I was inspired by people, times that I was listening to somebody speak and tears flowing down my cheeks because I resonated with what they were saying, that they'd given up everything, and gone through the process and found this beauty where they were 2 years later, a year later, whenever. And it just I felt that all sort of flooded back to me. And then a dear friend called me. We hadn't spoken in a long time, and she had worked for me in my previous job for a bit, and called me one night and said that they had called me to thank me for inspiring her. Basically, her and a friend had made lists of people that they wanted to call and thank. And her friend had since passed. And, I was the last person on the list to call, and on her list. And she was calling people from both lists. And her words just sparked this. It was there. It just needed a little more fuel, I guess, and a little more, yes, that's it, do that. So we just leaped into this, and it's turned out exactly like the magazine, and the fact that it just works. And for me, if an idea comes to me, I generally sit with it for a while. And if it's like that concept of, if you love something, set it free. If it comes back to you, it's yours. If it doesn't, it was never meant to be. And that's really what I do. If it comes to me, I sit with it in my heart and I let it sit for a while. If it stays with me, it was meant to be with me. If it wasn't, it will move on to somebody else. So both of those have decided to stay. And they've both been absolutely wonderful, and projects of the heart, that's what I call them. Another, and I think this is the big one for me because I'm in it right now, is leaving my career. At 59 years old, leaving my career of 15 years, and leaving it, and on a good note, leaving it I was satisfied with it. It was a good job. It was fulfilling. I was working in the humanitarian field. It was wonderful. But there was a voice within me that was calling me to say, yeah, there's something else. You have to do something else. You have to leave that. There's something else. When I sent my resignation in, I went back in my journal just for looking for something else. I found a resignation letter I had written from a year before, exactly a year before. It took me that long to follow that voice. It took me a year. And it really made me think that the timing's never wrong. When we take a leap of faith, the timing's never wrong. Yeah, our heart will wait for us. It will, it will wait for us when the rest of us and their mind and everything does that leap. It will wait. And I had to go through many things in that year till I finally hit that send button on my letter of resignation and leave that. And so, yeah, that was left on a really positive note. So I was leaping away from and into both at the same time. And I really feel they both held the same weight. One left on a really, really positive note. And what I was coming into was beyond what I could ever have imagined. So I think they were both holding the same weight. And that I love that, because it sort of changed in my life from leaping towards, leaping away from, like one or the other. And I feel blessed that I've had one where it holds both. And to be able to walk away from something and into something at the same time, and they both hold so much love in them. That's just that's just I'm so lucky to have had that. And now I'm in this other one, and in this unknown, really. I turned 60 in that time. I have some savings to live on and some small jobs, but I don't know where I'm going. I don't know exactly where I'm going. And that at the same time is terrifying, yet wonderful and exciting. And to hold those both on the same plane and the same level at the same time has been something I've had to learn. I've had to learn so much about myself, leaping into the absolute unknown, waking up every day and just going, what's today? And I have brought projects on. I've been writing some books. I published one. I'm working on another, and it's being edited now. I'm working on illustrations. That is a leap in itself to to put your wisdom out there, to put your wisdom on the line and say, this is me, this is my authenticity, this is who I am, this is what's in my heart. There it is. And I always remember Buffy St. Marie, the Indigenous Canadian singer, songwriter, philosopher, I believe, because she's just amazing in her words of wisdom. But she spoke once of her music and going on stage. And she basically said that it is not up to me if the audience loves or dislikes or enjoys my music. That is not up to me. My job is to walk on that stage and be who I am and be authentically me and sing my songs. That is my job. And that jumped into my heart and stayed there, because that's my job now. Every day is to get up and just be me. I couldn't take the word just out of there, and be me and be present and forge forward for, you know, those things that I'm putting out there, but put myself out there. And I tie that back into my authenticity, because that is being authentically me, and that is my freedom of expression, the same as this scarf dance when I was 6 years old. So we often say it's, you know, life is circular, but coming back into that freedom of expression and that pure authenticity. And I see authenticity as three things. It's living my life as it should be, as I live it from my heart. It's how I relate to others in an authentic way, without judgment, with compassion, and living within an authentic community. But to do the last two, you have to do the first one. And I think my whole life has been going back to that 6-year-old dance and finding that, you know, leaping from one thing to another and finding that pure authenticity again, and finding that freedom of expression again. And I think we get moments of it. And I think we get spots where, you know, places where we feel it. When I do ceremony, when I'm asked to hold ceremony for a group or for someone, that is a moment for me when I feel so pure and so, again, I go back to the word raw, and I know we use that with the last talking to Heather Drummond, that it's raw, it's real. And when I'm doing that, I feel purely authentic. Not just I'm just following my path. No, I feel it. Every cell in my body vibrates together and feels, this is me. Like, let's go back to that song. This is me. This is absolutely me. So when I left, I've got some notes here. When I left the job I just left, or the career, somebody said, and just give me a second to find it here. Anyhow, it was the idea of let love overpower the fear, like overtake the fear. Always remember that love over fear. And I really stepping into that now, I find is that I think sometimes our leaps can be like this, and they become circular, or they become we leap the same thing. We leap the same. It's like a loop. And I think for myself in my life now, the leaps have become, like we just said before we push record here, is that leap, like leapfrog. So you're leaping, you know, you're leaping from one thing and evolving. That evolutionary leap, how's that? That we're doing from one to another until you're maybe back around to, you know, how you felt as a youngster, and that pure authenticity. So I feel like I've said, you know, a lot in a little bit. what we normally ask for is people to share some wisdom. And I have a few things that I've jotted down here for 3 things of wisdom that I would like to, if nothing else, put these forward. But it's not just about recognizing who you are. It's one thing to say, oh, that's who I am. I recognize that. Yep, that's who I am. But it's about meeting that person. It's about embracing that person and loving that part of you. It's about celebrating them and making that your life. What do if I can see it in my mind, I can see that authenticity, that path. What do I do to make that path, those moments of pure authenticity? What do I do to build those moments and make them more? And recognizing her or him or they or them. What do I do to build more of those moments? So really just thinking it's not just about recognizing, but that it's about meeting them. It's like face-to-face meeting them and saying hello, and what, we'll walk hand in hand and get there. Also, when we leap, maybe number 2 is when we leap, we always think we're alone in leaping. We always think that, I know when I left relationships, that was a big one for me, is I would go and ask other people, what should I do? Where should I go? Like, where should I go? What should my decision be? Stay or go? And I always went to others to consult, and they could never make the decision for me. I always had to make that decision. So I had to leap, but they were always there to catch me. They were always there to support me. And I think we have to realize when we do leap, we feel like we're alone, but we're not alone. Even this, we've started a community to know that we're not alone when we leap. I hear from people time and time again on this, that we are, people resonate with somebody and they're like, oh, I really needed to hear that today. And yeah, I don't feel like I'm alone anymore in this. So I think that's really important, that we find support. And even though we are leaping, we are the ones taking that step. We're not alone in that. So really remembering that. And sometimes we might have to go find it, but we're not alone. And I think this is one thing I, sort of talked about, is finding it in those little moments. Finding those little moments of authenticity. Might be out, maybe me walking my dogs and watching them play in the field, and being that, oh, this is a moment. So like just cherishing and jotting down those moments, because they're out there. And what is it in those moments that is pure and authentic? I talked about ceremony. When I'm hosting ceremony, I build those, and I want to build more of those, because it makes me feel real. When I'm writing, I feel authentic, and pieces of me are coming out. Pieces of me are falling onto the paper, and where they go from there, when I push publish, is up to the universe. When I publish the magazine, it's a hard moment when I push publish, or however, submit, or however whatever format we're putting the magazine on. It's like, again, it's like that moment of, if you love something, set it free. I just keep going back to that one, because it just feels so real for me. It's like, if you love it, set it free, and it will. Where it goes, it goes. And the magazine each year keeps coming around, and it says, no, we're going to do it again. Do it again. Yep. And more authors come forward, and let's do it again. So it keeps coming back. But it's those moments of pure authenticity. If that wisdom of that word of pure, those 2 words, pure authenticity, and that feeling in your heart. And I can feel it when I listen to other people talk about their lives and their leaps. And if it brings tears to my eyes, it's because there's a resonance there in my heart. And it's that resonance that says, there's something in this that, that I'm connected with. and be it something that I have to do. And, for me right now, it's just trust it all. No matter what, I have to drop everything. I'm trying to let it all go, surrender to it, to everything. And that's the hardest thing to do in life. That is, I have to say, my biggest leap, because it's dropping it all, dropping who I was in as so far as, any judgments. I can feel when I'm judging somebody, and I'm able to start now dropping that. And, it's just dropping everything. It's hard work, but it's the biggest leap I've probably ever taken, is to not change who I am as a person, but change how I express myself in the world. So not changing who I am as a person, not changing who I am in my heart, but changing how I express myself. And that goes back to that pure authenticity. And my call to action for anybody listening and anybody here is sort of like Nike. Just do it. Like, do it. Like, take that, what's in your heart at this very second, is just say yes to it. Just say yes to it. It will always work out, but say yes to it. Let your love, there it is. Let your love be greater than your fear. Let your love be greater than your fear. Okay? And just say yes, and then say yes tomorrow, and then say yes the next day, and just keep saying yes. And that will, that will be that biggest leap that you've ever taken, all put into just a whole bunch of yeses. And trust it all. Trust it all, no matter what. And that is where I think I will end there. I know it's a little longer when we have two people conversing, but I'd love to bring everybody from the group here and see what conversation we can have. But thank you for listening. I feel blessed to have been able to share parts of my story with you. But anyhow, let's open the floor up here. I will change our view and invite anybody to share. I'd say just jump in.
I would like to say thank you. Listening to you, there were several points where it was resonating with me for sure. And your say yes, I love that. And I know that from my own experience, and probably everybody feels it, when this sort of path, I guess, started opening up, of course, fear is huge, because what if I fail? And when you were talking about your 6-year-old child, it threw me back to when I was 4. And I have very, very, very few memories of when I was a child. But this one is huge. And I was a flower girl at my aunt's wedding. And I had on this long white dress and these brand new patent leather shoes. And I was the youngest of 4 kids from not a wealthy family. And I never had anything new. I was the 4th. I had early everybody else's. And I remember twirling around on the kitchen floor and just in this long skirt, which of course, well, never mind that. That's a whole other thing. But I was twirling around, just feeling as free and feeling me, who I was. And I went, crash, flat on my butt. And it startled me. And then I started to laugh. And I just laughed and laughed and laughed. And my mother, what are you doing? But it was that unbridled joy. Mm-hmm. And at some point, many times later, I remembered the point then when I fell, and it became very clear. Get up. There was nobody there to help me. Mm-hmm. And that became a huge lesson for later on in life.
Wow.
Get up. When you fall, get up. Don't stop twirling just because you might fall. You're going to fall, and it's going to hurt sometimes.
Yeah.
get up anyway.
Love it. Love
Yeah. And that just jumped out at me when you were talking. That and one other thing for me, and this relates to the yes, which I haven't thought about this in a while. My dad had a saying, which I never remember hearing as a teenager, but as an adult I did. And it was in connection with, oh, should we buy a house? Should we do this? Should we do that? And his standard response was, if in doubt, don't.
Mhm.
And I can remember thinking, well, there's always going to be doubt. But I have found, as I've aged and made some pretty major decisions, I know immediately if I should do it. If in doubt, don't. If I'm in doubt, I have to rationalize my way through it. Okay, I really want to do this. Now, what are the good reasons why I want to do this? Because I'm going to get flack for it. You know?
Mm-hmm.
But if there's no doubt at all, that's not this talking. That's this talking.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what you're just say yes. Nike, I love that. I love that. I love that. I love that. Anyway, so thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing.
It's very nice to, after all this time, to hear more of your story too.
Yeah, we've known each other for a while.
Yeah.
Oh, that's funny. Thank you.
Thank you.
I think we lose that. I think we're, when you said something that when you were twirling around and you fell down and it, I think I sort of felt that pull back, like we lose that and we're pulled back from, we're often like life sort of pulls us away from that.
Yeah.
And no. And
yeah. And socialization happens.
Yeah.
Not always a good thing.
Yeah. I just felt this pull. It's just like this, somebody was just this vacuum and pulling back and just going, no, don't dance, don't fall, don't twirl.
Yep. You might get hurt.
Yeah.
Well, I found out we do get hurt.
You do.
And we get up.
We get up and we go on and we twirl again.
It reminds me that it was love that got me up because, you know, at one time I took care of 22 horses by myself, and they were teaching me, and I realized that whenever I was alone with the horses and something happened to them, they got cut or whatever, and there was blood, that, man, I just knew right then what to do, and I would go and do it and never think about it. But if anybody was around, I'd scream. It was like, it's like, help me. But if I was there with them, I knew what to do. And because I loved them so much and I wasn't going to have them be hurt, I might have to call a vet, but I knew what to do in the moment and I didn't panic. So, but if there was somebody there, that I could call or, then, and I laughed at myself one day because I thought, hey, you know how to do this. Come on. You don't need to call anybody. You might need them to hold your towel or something, but you don't have to fall apart. So
interesting. So we doubt ourselves. We tend that doubt.
Really, and that made me laugh, Pat. That made me laugh, like you laughed when and you got up. So that was kind of my getting up to know that I could do it.
Interesting. Yeah.
It's like when I fell in the mud and broke my ankle, and my husband just walked in circles because I'd broken my leg the year before, almost the same month, and he was walking in circles, and he brought me. Now, the man, he was big into health. He taught in school. I mean, he was not stupid, and he brought me a piece of cardboard, the telephone book, and hay rope to put around my ankle. And I looked at him and I said, honey, that ain't going to do it. And he said, oh, not again. Because he knew it was going to be another year of me not being able to walk. And So when the paramedics got there, they put a pillow around it with duct tape. And that worked perfect. But I thought how funny. I had never seen him panic. And it was like, oh, not again, not again. So that was his moment. It was funny though. And it was raining and he never brought me an umbrella.
That's funny. That's funny. Cardboard, a telephone book, and
A string.
That's awesome. Hey, it works. Oh, that's funny. Interesting.
Yeah.
And I love when we talk and we share, there's different pieces that resonate differently. And that's who are we to guess what will resonate? Because we don't know. It's like to me, it's like impact. We never know the impact we've had on somebody else. And we always, in my teaching times, and when I go facilitate years ago, it was like, oh, nobody listened to me today. I don't think I made any, we'd go through that until I had somebody contact me. They found me on Facebook and they said, are you Lynda Watson? I'm like, yeah. And did you have the farm? And yep. And then I got this long Facebook message from 15 years before the impact I'd had on them 15 years ago.
Beautiful.
And at that moment, I'm like, I will never know the impact I have on somebody. So I'm going to stop guessing and shooting myself down if I don't think I have, because we never know. So
you shouldn't, or your ego could be wildly out of control.
100%.
Yeah.
But how often is it? So
Yeah.
that was a moment, that's a blessed moment where it's just like,
well, I work with people in recovery, and that's so true. I mean, I really have to release them. When they leave, I've done all I can do. I've planted seeds, and that's all I can do. And last Wednesday, one of the staff came down and said, I have heard so much about equine that I had to come see for myself. And two people came down. One was a nurse and one was a staff member that does the alumni website for the people that leave. And she said, I hear the alumni saying how much these sessions have meant to them and how much they miss the horses. And she said, could I get a picture of you and the horses to put on the alumni site? Because they talk about them all the time. And I thought, that was really nice to hear. And we got a great picture. She put it on the alumni site. And I just put it up on my Facebook.
I saw that.
But it was really, really special, to hear that. But I do believe that we plant seeds with people so that they can develop beyond that, and that it's not my job to do that.
No, well, it's the sun and the rain and the earth. Like there's everything needed to grow that. But I think your comment there is so important, that we don't know what impact is, but it's so important for us to share who's impacted us. And for us to share with others that you made an impact on me today, or what you said.
Yeah. Gratitude is a wonderful thing.
Yeah. Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
Greta,
Amazing.
any thoughts?
Yeah.
Wisdom?
Oh, I loved so much of what you shared, and something that had a high vibration for me was when you said the timing is never wrong. That took me to a conversation I was just having with my sister, actually, and we were talking about this decision that she made a few years ago to not kind of take a leap. And it was a leap into something that she had spoken very powerfully as something she wanted to manifest. So it was a wild thing to say no to when it all of a sudden came. And she said no to it. And now a few years later, after again a lot of everything happening in all these different dimensions and all these different levels. She's again in the cusp of a similar type of leap. And I believe so deeply that like the timing is always perfect. And so even if you don't take the leap, eventually your life is going to pull you where you're meant to land.
Yeah.
And it's sometimes you leave, sometimes you're kicked off, like you said,
Yeah.
but you're gonna be brought back around. And I think the beauty of it is that in the time in between, there's this collaborative energy that's happening, putting all of the people and the other things in place so that when you actually do land, you're held. And so trusting that so wholly is so freeing, isn't it? And it also offers that self-compassion for the times that you got the yes, Pat, that so you so beautifully said there was no doubt. And you didn't take it. And yet again, it's like there are these larger forces calling them to us, that we can be gracious with the timing because it takes the time it takes.
Horse time.
Yeah.
I do find time though, as I'll speak for myself, as I get older, I have a different relationship with time. And since I lost my father, who was the last of a generation, I have a different relationship with time. And that's something I'm having to sit with and live more and dance more, get more scarves out. Yeah, it's just that relationship changed when I left my job and all within a few years. My relationship with time really changed.
Yeah. That's beautiful.
Interesting.
And that's so powerful, I think. I think that we start to embody that we can be in relationship with time differently, and we can take the limitation of the briefness of our life very seriously in a way that brings us very alive and joyful. Like being serious about the briefness of time that we have really can be a beautiful and joyful acknowledgement.
It's a spark. It's a spark that just goes, no, say yes. I say yes fast. I say yes faster so much now than ever before.
Me too.
Yeah, because
Me too.
Maybe that's why I go back to my mother, because she had me later on in life, so maybe I see her relationship that just just do it. Yeah, interesting. Kathy, any thoughts? Anything you'd like to share? I can unmute you there.
Unmute, Kathy.
There we go. I think we've got it.
There we go.
There we are.
Messing around with technology. Yeah, I dressed up for the occasion. I'm in the barn.
Perfect place.
Yeah, it's my happy place. I guess what I was reflecting on and the inspiration I took from you, what you shared, Lynda, is that I'm on a very similar path, and a woman of a similar vintage of just quitting my job, just like that back in early 2020, and taking, that exit stage left decision, because I knew in my heart it was the thing to do. And what I take away from that and you sharing is that as women of our age too, it's refreshing to see other women that have the courage to do that. It validates for me, hey, I did this and other women have done it, and it's quite powerful when I think about it. So that really resonated with me, you just sharing, your decision making around it. My situation was a little bit different. Wasn't really a job I loved. It was more like, I need out of this. It's not vibrating with me anymore. Yeah. So it was a different decision making process. It's harder, I think, maybe if you're leading something you love. I did it pretty quick, made a decision within about 24 hours. I'll never forget that. Yeah. So yeah, right at the just 2 weeks before Ontario declared the state of emergency in regards to the pandemic. So I might have lost the job anyway and would have got benefits, but anyway. However, that goes back to the reflection about time.
Yeah.
I too have a totally different relationship with time, partly because my time is now pretty much 100% involved with what I do with horses and and other things I do within my community. And also as parents age or they go, you do have a different relationship as well, because you reflect a lot on your own mortality. And I just become more joyful actually in everything that I do now because of that as well. And in some ways I wish, I'd been that way earlier, but everything happens at the appropriate time, right? So I think this was the time for the awakening. So yeah, so it's nice to have other women that have done similar things. It's just very validating. It's like I'm not the only one. Not that matters so much really, but I relate to it, right? I could sit down with you over coffee and we could probably chat for a couple of hours about all of that stuff, and it would be very understandable. And some people it's not so understandable. But why would you ditch beautiful clothes for filthy coveralls? Well,
because they're more comfortable.
Because they're more comfortable. Yeah.
They smell better.
They smell better. They smell like horses. Yeah.
And look at Greta, who did it young and rode thousands of miles.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's just a total inspiration. So it's fabulous.
Oh, that is an inspiration.
Yeah, absolutely. But I don't have any regrets, right? Because everything that I think happens to you in your life makes you who you are. And then you feed from that experience. So, me, I'm 61. So, the years of experience up to now has got me to a very interesting point in life. And if I had done things earlier, there would have been other things that happened to me, that actually traumatic things that happened to me, but they make me who we are. And they are the reason I do what I do. So, and that would have taken time to do that. That just couldn't have happened. It wouldn't have happened to me if I was young.
Yeah,
it wouldn't have. It wasn't the circumstance that wouldn't have happened. Maybe something else would have happened, but it didn't. So, so I reflect on that as well. So, and
I had a 26-year-old girl come to me that wanted to change careers. Okay, she was a respiratory therapist, and she had been working with the horses, and she wanted to maybe go get her counseling degree so she could start equine assisted psychotherapy. And she said, she says, I just worry about changing careers this late in life. I said, how old are you? And she said, 26. And I said, honey, I was 52. And I'll be 77 this year. Oh, wow. So I give each decade, I give it a word. So my word for the 70s is savor.
I love that.
I love that.
So I'm savoring my 70s.
Savoring your 70s.
Terrible,
but I loved it.
Savoring 70s.
I wonder if I'm too old at 26 to change careers.
Oh my goodness.
Oh my gosh.
Wow.
At our
Beautiful.
age, that is just so hilarious.
That's beautiful.
Yeah. Wow.
Kathy, it's interesting you say that. I signed up for a summit, these one-day summit things. And so everybody's introducing themselves now, and there's a couple 100,000 people on it. Like it doesn't happen till in April, but it's the one thing I see most in the posts is women of our age saying, I'm changing my life. Life has changed for me, or I'm changing things. And I would say between 50 and 65 is the number one, and mostly women, some men, but mostly women. Like 200,000. I mean, I obviously haven't read them all, but that is a huge trend. So I don't know if it's a generation that maybe it's a generation, and maybe the next generation does it a little earlier and hits that pure authenticity a little earlier. And
yeah, there is a little bit of science behind it too. I can't remember who I was listening to. Anyway, that doesn't really matter, but just about where you are at, within your brain and, within your spiritual side of things too. When you reach this point in time, you're past childbearing, you may be in a different relationship, you're retiring, or contemplating retirement. It's quite a big shift, and it becomes more about you and who you really are, as opposed to.
But you know what, Kathy? I think maybe it's not just our age, because look at Greta. Greta wanted to do it for her child.
Yeah.
So, she wanted her child to have a different life. So it may be about the actual time that we're living in and the vibration that we're living in this time
Good
that is
point.
enabling
Good
everyone
point.
to make a change. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Good point.
I love that.
Mhm.
That
Yeah, me too. Yeah.
reminds me actually of what came up when I was listening with Lynda when you were sharing about the source, kind of the source inspiration. And it took me to my grandparents, all of my grandparents, except for my grandfather, one of my grandfathers, but he also left his home. All of them were immigrants that left their home countries
yeah.
and had to leap to live
leap,
and to
yeah.
survive.
Mhm.
And I do believe we're in these collective transitions, right? Generationally. And we've kind of, your generations have had like a different experience, and like my generation grew up with a story that your generation grew up with, was told and got to live a lot of it, whereas a lot of my generation was told the story, believed it, and then it all didn't work. Like you can get a college degree and you can't feed a family, you can have dreams
Yeah.
and you can't feed a family. And so I think there's like this collective thing that you're referring to, Pam, that's like these different dynamics that are supporting the awareness earlier and earlier, that then says, no, I'm not gonna just believe
And that supports the generation of your child
yes.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
and my grandchildren.
Yeah.
Yes.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah.
What a perfect
Yes.
note to end it on. Just that,
Yes.
that
Beautiful.
that food for thought, and
Yeah.
that coming together of generations.
Yes.
Mhm.
Yes.
Mhm.
That we're not. I used to run art programs, and I used to run one for young youth, say, I don't know, 8 to 16, and seniors together. And we always
Nice.
and we called it Years Together,
Nice.
because I came from a
Nice.
generation that you always heard, oh, we're just years apart. There was that saying that, wait, I don't understand you, we're just years apart.
Yeah.
So this we called Years Together, and that
Beautiful.
totally reminded me
Love
of
it.
Of what you all
That's
said there.
lovely. That's
That
lovely.
is
There's your
lovely.
genius.
There's
There's
the
your
genius.
genius.
Oh, it was just,
Yeah.
it was a good name at the right time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But with that, I think we'll
Yeah.
call it there. It's 2:07. Thank you all for
Wow.
being here. I
Thank
am
you, Linda.
so
Thank you, Linda.
blessed
Yes. Thank you,
to
Linda.
share, for holding space for me to tell my story, and just holding space for each other to share theirs.
Wonderful.
And for
Lovely.
those that are
Thank you.
listening, thank you for listening. And next time we have Sarah Barnes that's coming, and she's going to talk a little differently about leaps of faith, and the fact that her leaps of faith have been to stay put. So that's maybe a bit of a different twist on it, and a different viewpoint on what we think
like
I think of leaps of faith as movement.
Yeah.
And this has been, no, my leap is going to stay. So I really look forward to talking to Sarah in a few weeks' time. And with that being said, thank you all for coming.
Thank
and
you.
We'll
Thank you.
talk soon. Take care.
Yes.
Bye-bye.
Bye.